Hey, welcome to Dream Aloud with Kendra. It's a podcast for Black women who want to live limitless lives. Be inspired by others who have dared to step outside of their comfort zone to live their hopes and dreams and passions. Now let's get started because life is way too short not to live the way that you want.
Hello, everybody. Go ahead and have some water while I introduce you. I want to welcome you back to series of Second Acts, my series for my podcast. My seventh guest is Marion Peaches Malloy. I met her as my stateside liaison for the Ultimate Middle East journey that I took back in 2019. She was gracious enough to call me and walk me through the process of what I needed to know and do before I got on that plane and enjoyed Egypt and Dubai. She's an avid traveler and she loves to do the Middle East journeys. And so she was the best liaison and person for the job. I'm not sure if she did it for everybody else, but she made me feel really special. And I want you all to meet Miss Marion Malloy. She started out as a para for teaching in her school district and went on to the military and has done so many things. And we're going to talk about that today. But Peaches is the epitome of the power of the pivot and how to live your life on your own terms. So I want to welcome you, Marion Peaches Malloy. Thank you for joining me. So
I feel so special.
You feel special because you are special. And I told you I spend all of my time figuring out how I want to retire and live. And so I've been watching you because you've been retired, but you travel the world, you're a globetrotter and you do everything that you want to do, couple houses, you're doing your thing. And so tell us how you got to where you are now. You started out with your first job as a para for the public school system.
Yes, my first job out of college was a paraprofessional teacher's assistant, and that was because I needed a job quickly. So I did that for a little while and then decided, well, it's like I had a rapport with the students. They were from my neighborhood. I said, I'm doing a lot of the work and the teacher's getting the salary. So I took my transcript, had it evaluated, came to learn that some of my courses were cross-linked with the education department. So in order to get a license to teach, I needed 12 credits in education and 36 credits in a subject area. So I went back to college, to Hunter College for the summer, took one course. That gave me my 9 credits, and then I got my license to teach. When my first teaching job was actually English as a second language class, social studies class. Kendra, I spoke un poquito español. Believe me. But the way I got over was I told the students, I said, solamente inglés en esta clase. Solamente inglés.
So they thought that they were learning English by being submerged, that you didn't know a lot of Spanish anyway. So you made it work for yourself. You're like, only English in this classroom.
That's right. So you do what you have to do.
So I didn't know you were teaching ESL. I knew you spoke Spanish, but I didn't know that. So here they are. You're solamente español en esta clase, English in esta clase.
See, that was the extent of my Spanish. But I got over it. And I taught math, but it was basic math because I was horrible with math. But once again, you do what you have to do. I stayed a lesson or two ahead of the students and I made it work. And then I decided I wanted to go to grad school because I wanted to be a counselor, I thought. Mm-hmm. Took a sabbatical, went to grad school, hated it. And decided when I was in grad school, I spoke with my college roommate and she was like, I just joined the Air Force Reserve. And I was like, what? and that was always something in the back of my mind. My sister was in the military, and
Mhm.
I admired her for that. So I joined. I went and I took the test, and I joined the Air Force Reserves. And when I spoke with my recruiter, I said, "Look, I don't want a traditional female job. I want a job that's going to put me out there with the
Mhm.
men." So based on my score, I had a whole list of jobs that I could apply for, and I decided aircraft electrical systems because that sounded so tech, you know.
Yep.
So I went to basic training, which was a trip because I was considered the grandma of the flight because I was so much older. I was already 27, 28 when I joined
Wow,
the reserve.
27. Yeah, okay. And
Yeah,
everybody
and
else
that
was
was old.
18. Were they
Yeah,
18 and 19?
that was considered old. So I did basic training. I made it through, and then I went off to Chanute Air Force Base for like 21 weeks of training for aircraft electrical systems. And I was going to be assigned to McGuire Air Force Base here in New Jersey.
New
So
Jersey.
I knew that I was going to be working on the C-141s and possibly the Hercules C-130s. But tech school was,
Those are planes.
yes,
Okay.
those were the
Plane models of plane.
right, cargo aircraft basically.
Okay.
So I while I was in tech school, oh, prior to going to the reserves, I filled out an application for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I didn't want to do it because all I knew about the Port Authority was the bus terminal. And the bus terminal in the 70s was not where you wanted to be. So while I was in tech school, I got a call to come and take a test for the Port Authority. Well, you know, I said, well, let me do it because
Mm-hmm.
just in case this doesn't work out, I'll have something else. So I came to the city, I took the test, I passed it. Then I had to come back and take the practical part of the test because the job that I was testing for was back then it was called FOA, Facility Operation Agent. And we're the ones who used to sit in those booths inside the tunnel, not the toll booths, the booths inside the tunnel. And we were emergency response. We responded to what we call a stoppage, got down on the roadway, handled the traffic depending on where the
That
emergency
little one
equipment.
person car that you
Right,
see on the side of the
right.
tunnel.
Sometimes two persons, because I was in it with, and I got into an accident with a two-person, with two of us in it. We were responding to a fire. Yeah, I
Two
got
people can
stories,
fit in
girlfriend.
that car? I didn't know two
Yeah,
people can
because
fit in that car.
what happens is the car, you can't make a turn on the catwalk, so the car has to be able to go, you know. So if you're going, let's say north, you're going to sit in one direction. If you're going south, you get out and you climb over the seat and you sit in the other direction. So yeah,
Okay.
two people can sit in
Back
that
to
vehicle
back.
back to back.
Got you.
So yeah, so I would get down on the roadway, handle the traffic, and then after doing that for a while, you had to become garage trained. So I had to train to be the one to respond to tow out a truck, a bus, a motorcycle, or a car. And all of them are, and I had to learn how to unlock brakes on trucks and
Mhm.
buses. And also had to learn how to fight fires. And I actually responded to two fires in my short time as a FOA. Yeah, it was not, oh my goodness, I kept saying I'm
In
not
the
going to have a
tunnel?
face. The first time I responded, didn't quite make it to the vehicle because the catwalk car had an accident.
Okay.
Long story. The second time I responded, the vehicle was at the mouth of the tunnel, just at the entrance, and it like ignited. And I had to get out. I drove the wrecker over. I had to get out and fight, put it out. And the whole time I'm fighting this fire because the car is just engulfed now. I'm like, I'm not going to have a face. This thing is going to blow up in my face.
Mhm.
I was scared, but I made it through.
Were
So
you the
after
only
doing,
woman
I
working in?
was not. There was one other female
Okay.
during the time that I was at the Holland Tunnel, and Yeah, was one of the female, and she's had a similar background because she also came from a previous teaching position.
Hmm.
But yeah, we were very different in a lot of ways. She didn't get along very well with the other guys. It was like they were butting heads all the time. Me personally, I would take my breaks away from everybody, so they didn't have an opportunity to beat up on me like they beat up on her.
Oh, they did.
Well, not
So
physically beat up on her. I'm talking
no,
about yeah.
you had that, but I was just wondering. I know you said weren't you one of a few women in the military as well?
Yes, in my unit, in my shop, in the electrical shop, there were only two of us, three of us. Yeah.
So how was your relationship there with the
It
men?
was it was not easy. It
See,
wasn't it wasn't easy at all. And in retrospect, I wish I had chosen a different field because I had no electrical background.
okay,
All of the guys in the shop were previous full-time military and had previously worked in the maintenance field, either as electricians or something else in the maintenance field. I walked in like a newbie. So it was hard for me. And the C-141 was it was a huge aircraft. I could work on something in April and literally not see that unit again until the next April. There was just so much electrical stuff on
wow,
that aircraft, as you can imagine.
wow.
So,
Now
and when they talk,
I have a separate experience, and it may be because I started in school, but I started out in electrical engineering, and the class
mhm,
was full of military men who had just gotten out of the military, so they were a little
mhm,
older than me. But the whole thing was I learned so much because they were willing to share. And so when I got out into the field, I actually moved over to voice and data. I'm
mhm,
I'm used to being the only girl in the voice and data field.
mhm.
I'm used to just having to prove myself. And once I prove myself, they are good. It's usually the women that have an issue. So that I find that
Yeah,
strange. That's
yeah.
interesting.
It was hard because it was hard
It
because
was
my
like,
skill level was very low, and
okay.
but I put myself out there. I joined the Air Force for a couple of reasons. One was to travel. One was to meet a different caliber of men
Mm-hmm.
because living in Harlem in the late 70s and 80s, there were drug dealers and there were number runners.
And Dapper Dan, who was all of those?
Okay. So, and I wanted to learn how to do something different. And I accomplished all three of those. I got to travel Europe. I've been to Paris, um, Spain with the military, Portugal, well, a group of islands off the coast of Portugal called the Azores. So I got to do some traveling. I met, my ex-husband, who, is really, really a nice guy, even though we're no longer married. But I met him. And so I accomplished all of my goals when I went into the military. But it was difficult, the technical aspect of it. I never really,
Okay.
got it. Even though at one point there were like three components to the electric, maintenance. There was the docks, there was in-shop repair, and there was flight line. And at one point, I was actually supervisor of in-shop repair. And I learned in the Port Authority, you don't necessarily have to know the job because I've supervised people in positions that I've never worked before.
Mm-hmm.
Supervising and actually doing the job are two different things. Yes, you have to have an understanding of what needs to be done,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't actually have to have the skill. So
So
you
your
need to be able
skill,
to get people to work,
your skill is
to be able,
leadership.
right? You need to get people to recognize what the mission is and get the mission accomplished. And you do a lot of that in the Port Authority. At least I did.
And how
I
long did you
remember
work at Port Authority?
how long?
Yes.
30 and a half years. So
And you
I
did
went from,
several jobs, correct?
yes, I went from fighting fires, towing trucks and buses, up to duty manager at the international facility at Newark Airport. That's the last job I had. Although I applied for airport duty manager at Kennedy Airport and actually got the job, I decided that that opportunity was given to me a whole lot later than it was given to my male counterpart.
Mm.
And I had to deal with things that my male counterpart didn't. I survived breast cancer. I had a, a plethora of medical things going on with me. And duty manager of Kennedy Airport is no joke. And I felt that I could not do the job to the best of my ability with the things that I had going on with me at the time. So I turned it down and went back to Newark as duty manager of the international facility, which in itself was a handful. Put
But it
out a
was a
lot of
job
fires.
that you knew, and you knew the people
Yeah,
who worked for you, and they knew
right,
that the job that you expected them to do.
right.
So tell us about that, the discernment of when, because like you said, you went into the military, you didn't have the skill and you didn't like it, some of the skills that you had to have, but you recognized your leadership skills in the process. So how is it as phenomenal women who pivot, if you're giving someone some advice, how is it, when do you know to actually take the chance and when not to? And it sounds to me like when you're younger, go ahead and go for it. When you're older, you make more judicious decisions, or is that?
Yeah, when you're younger, exactly what you said. When you're younger, you say go for it. What do I have to
What do you have to
lose?
lose? Yeah.
And then also a motivating factor for me was my mother was no joke. She was like, you can't live anywhere for free. You better get out there. So I had to work. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I love her for that because it instilled a certain, you know, it instilled something in me. I don't look for handouts. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
you have to get out there and work. And working the Port Authority jobs as I did, it wasn't always easy. Working, for example, working snow duty, you know, at the airport. Um, it wasn't easy. You worked 12 on, you slept for 12 and you came back and you worked 12, it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
easy, but it was a job that had to be done. It was a job that you guys, the traveling public, don't always see or appreciate.
Yeah.
So I can honestly say the staff that I worked with at Newark Airport was top notch. They went above and beyond to see to it that you got what you needed and you went from point A to point B effortlessly. It didn't always work that way because there are things that are out of our control, like
Mm-hmm.
Mother Nature. But the staff, at least the guys that I worked with at Newark and also at Kennedy, because at Newark, Terminal B is the Port Authority's terminal.
Okay.
And Terminal B, if I remember correctly, had like 15 gates, but most of the time went down to a 13 gate configuration because of the wide bodies. Not every gate can accommodate every aircraft, which made the job of the agent, whose job was it to gate the aircraft, increasingly difficult. But they always made it work. They always made
Mm-hmm.
it work in unison with the ground crew, who were contract employees who worked for the different contract
Mm-hmm.
companies. In unison with they pulled off miracles. Getting planes on the gate, getting them off the gates. So effortlessly that the traveling passengers, didn't have an idea. I mean, I've had some stories of stuff that we do. I actually had a funeral for a dog one night at the airport.
At the airport.
A wake, I should call it. An aircraft took off, had to come back um, because of a navigational problem, and there was a dog on the aircraft. And prior to the aircraft taking, it was a very hot summer day, And one of the ground crew alerted the condition of the dog to me. He said,
Wow.
"This dog doesn't look good." It was sitting in its kennel on the tarmac, on the ramp. It was very hot that day, and then it went from that hot heat into an aircraft that's now
Cold.
35,000 feet. So now it's cold. Anyway, when the plane came back, the passengers wanted to see their dog, and I didn't tell them that the dog was dead. I contacted the station manager and, "Look, you have to speak to your passengers."
Mm-hmm.
And he went and he got them, and he was like, "Oh, your dog is dead," just like that.
Oh, wow.
I said, "You couldn't put them in the first class lounge, give them a bev, So at I don't know if you're familiar with Newark, but the terminals are they're called satellites. They're
Mm-hmm.
circular, and there's
Mm-hmm.
what we call the sterile corridor. So technically, when you step off the plane and you're in the sterile corridor, you're not technically in the United States yet until you go through customs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, I called customs to see if I could bring the dog up to the sterile corridor so the people could see their pet. This was a family pet of
A
10,
family
15
member.
years. Yeah, so they customs allowed us to stay in the sterile corridor. They said goodbye to their dog, and that
Did you
was that. But that
cry?
did I cry? I fought back the tears because at the time I had a cat that I found. I actually found at Newark Airport, and we called him Nia. His name was Nia because initially I thought it was a girl. And back in the day, if you remember, Newark was the three-letter acronym was NIA. Now it's
Yeah.
EWR.
Yeah.
NIA standing for Newark International Airport.
Airport.
So we found Nia at the end of a runway, and I looked at her. I thought it was her, and I said, "You know
Him.
what? Today is your lucky day. I'm taking you home." Nia lived with me for 23 years. So,
How many celebrities have you met?
oh my goodness, Patti LaBelle, Michael Jackson, Denzel, Whitney Houston. It's a bunch of them. Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, I've met a few. Not Bob Marley, his wife.
Rita.
Right. I met her. Yeah, I met, you get to meet a lot of people.
I worked at the Philadelphia airport. I
Mhm.
missed all the good people. I love Maya Angelou. By the time I ran down the corridor, she was gone.
It was gone.
Gerald Levert used to come through the operations office late at night. I only worked during the day, so I missed them. I got to see older people, Chuck Berry, that kind of thing, but I
Oh,
didn't get to see too many people that I actually wanted to see. So, but
mm,
because I work 9 to 5, and so I missed all the good action. But I
yeah.
always ask that question of people who work in the airport because you get to see some folks football and
Yeah, a lot of
basketball
people.
teams.
Anita Baker, a lot of people. Because remember, I worked in aviation, oh, for most of my career.
Hmm.
So I got to see a lot of people. And I worked all three at the time, the three airports. I started at LaGuardia. I went to Newark. Then I went to Kennedy, then back to Newark, then back to Kennedy, then finally back to Newark.
And now you're retired.
And now I'm retired and I'm loving it. And I remember when I retired, the Port Authority had something called a buyout. And basically, they give you an extra month for every year that you work. So I worked 3 years, 30 years, I got 30 extra months added onto my time, which is
That's awesome.
significant because every year over 30 years, you get an additional 1.5% of your final average salary. And that's
Now,
for life.
do people work at the Port Authority now? Do they get that?
Well, they haven't had a buyout. Recently, in
But they
fact,
haven't changed much of the retirement. So if you work at a Port Authority at a government job, keep it because there are no pensions like that anywhere else.
true. And Port Authority is not government. Everybody makes that
Okay.
it's not, it's an entity in of itself.
Okay.
It's a by
Well,
state,
if you have a retirement plan such as the Port Authority,
you want to stay there.
you want to stay there. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you don't follow some other dreams that you have. That doesn't mean that you don't make pivots. And so from what I'm hearing from you, you have been entrepreneurial in your work at the Port Authority. You went from the bridge, then the airport, and several different airports. So just because you work for the same entity doesn't mean you have to do the same job for
Absolutely
30
not.
years. So you kept it fresh.
I took every test that I could take to move. I took every test except bridge painter because the height. But the Port Authority gave me an opportunity to explore,
Mhm.
to grow, and to learn a lot. I met a lot of very interesting people. I learned how to do a tune-up on my 1974 Dodge Colt when I was working as a FOA. I learned a
So
lot.
I'm glad to know that when we were in Egypt and Dubai, you could have put out the fires if we'd had one, fixed our van if we needed to.
Well,
Thank God we didn't need any of that, but
I, it has been years. I don't even know if I could change a tire now because, I don't do that anymore.
you probably
When
could.
I left the Holland Tunnel, I was really happy to get out of there because I kept saying I'm too girly for this. Because it was a dirty job, but it's a job that I'm glad I did.
That you did.
I'm
And
glad
so
that I did it.
now your life is filled with travel and what else?
Well, it would be filled with travel if it wasn't for this blasted pandemic. And, it's like I feel like I've lost a year, you know?
Yeah,
But
we're supposed to go to South Africa in March. That is not going
that's
to
not going to
happen
happen. Yeah, but it will happen it will
next
happen
year.
2022. I'm sure it will.
Okay.
It has been
So
rescheduled.
so tell everybody where you've been.
Oh goodness, I've been to South America. One of my first trip out of the country was to Guyana, South America. Never really heard of it, but some people at Stony Brook were going to this thing called Carafesta, it's the Caribbean Festival of the Arts, and I knew some people that were going, so I went down, and it was Guyana is in South America, but it's very Caribbean.
Mhm.
The foods, even the
Mhm.
accent is very
Mhm.
Caribbean. So that was my first trip, and I did a lot of the islands, Jamaica, Trinidad, Tobago. I used to do carnival at Trinidad. I did about 7 or 8 consecutive years of playing mask, full costume. Oh my goodness, it was so much fun. I don't think I could keep up at this age now. It's just too much. That's like you have to go to boot camp before you go to carnival because they are nonstop.
And there's no
I did
sleeping.
no sleeping. Then I've been to the Middle East with you guys and Franda. I've been to Thailand, Ghana, Morocco, Senegal twice, and I would go back to Senegal again. I loved it. I've
Senegal?
been Senegal, yeah.
So you've
I've been,
been to the door of no return.
yes, I should have had my picture. I could show you me walking through the door. I've
I
been
think we
twice.
all need to do that.
Yes,
So I
it's
wanted to
it.
go to Ghana and Senegal, but the door of no return is on my vision board.
Yeah, that's where you. That's the curator of the museum. It's a museum now. I think he's passed away, but when we went, um, he asked if there were any Black Americans in the group, and we all raised our hands, said yes, and he says, "You step in front because the Caucasians were front and center. They want to get everything they could get. I can't blame them because it was a very interesting place. But he said, "You Black Americans, you come stand in the front because you weren't supposed to be able to be back here. You weren't. The fact that you made it back
Mm.
in and of itself." I'm thinking about it and I'm getting goose pimples. And then the tour began and he showed us the rooms that he said anywhere from 75 to 100 slaves would be jammed into this room. And it was just horrible. And there's also a place similar to that in Ghana called White Castle, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's White Castle. And,
It used to
was
be a French fortress, I believe.
right,
Mm-hmm.
where they held the slaves just before they, but Senegal was the best. And like I said, I've been twice and I would go back again. So anybody out there
I'm looking
who's
at my
listening,
Facebook page, and Shani says, you have lived a few lives.
I have. I really have.
And she's still doing it. After she showed me the ropes via phone before we went to Dubai, because we went to Dubai first. You were already there before we got there.
Right.
And but you went to Oman or Bahrain? Where were you?
No, I was just in Dubai.
Okay.
I think I got there
Latifah
a day
that went
before
to
you
Oman.
guys, because Franda, Franda can be very persuasive. Oh, come, we'll do a day together. Everybody gets okay, whatever. But I have to say that Franda is the one who had me call people because I had done the trip before. But I have to say that my phone call to you was the best. We stayed on the phone for quite a while, didn't we?
Yes,
it was like
I
when
always
I got
have
off
a
the
million
phone,
questions.
Yeah, and when I got off the phone, I felt like I knew you. And then when I got to Dubai and I actually met you, you gave me the tightest, longest hug. I don't know if you remember. I said, this girl, she knows how to hug. I hate those little, those little,
the little
no, give
pats.
me a hug. I want to, yeah.
Because we felt like we knew each other before.
Exactly. And everybody was looking like, they know each other. But we had a really good time. But Kendra, that day at the Louvre will go down in history. Did we not act the fool?
We acted the fool.
We had
so there's a Louvre in Abu Dhabi that is exactly like the one in France. However,
we saw nothing.
We didn't go in because it was 13 days, 14, 15 days of travel and tour. And we had enough of touring that day. And we stood outside and took a million pictures. We laughed and we joked. We did go into the gift shop, but the only art that I saw was the pictures that were outside. So we saw the Rosetta Stone or variation of the Rosetta Stone. After that, I saw nothing. One Van Gogh painting outside, but we couldn't do not another museum, but we pretended that we did. So whoever's watching now that was on our trip and think we actually went inside the museum, now you know we didn't do it.
Well, one of my doctors, when I told him I went, he started asking me all these questions. Did you see this? Did you see that? And I couldn't, what was I going to say? But anyway, we had a blast. And the next time we go, Kendra, we will go into the Louvre. Because we're going back. We're going.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And I'm so glad that you recommended the hot air balloon for Egypt.
Yes, I didn't do it the first time I went, but this time, were you in the basket with me? You weren't in the same basket.
Yeah, I was in the basket.
And we had that hard landing.
Yes.
We had that hard.
We had 2 landings because the first one didn't go so well, and he had to bring us back up. And I will say this. First of all, we had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, we had to be in the lobby at 5 o'clock to be taken to this little rinky-dink boat. So I was already afraid, but I said, I'm here in Egypt. I don't want to feel like I wish I had done it. So I got on the boat and I was really quiet. We go across the Nile over there. Then when we get there, we're freezing because as Ahmed told us, welcome to Egypt, where you will experience all 4 seasons in one day. Right. So it was cold. I had my hood on. They're blowing up the balloons and I'm glad for the heat, but I'm like, God, please let me live, because I'd like to get home to my family. But if not, I have repatriation insurance, because we know that we need repatriation insurance because we don't want people to have to collect money to send us back home. So we want to make the burden light. And so I was like, I have repatriation insurance, and I have insurance for healthcare if we don't make it, you know, all in one piece if we're still living. But I got on and I said, please let me live. We get in this balloon and we're smashed up in there. And I'm like, what did we let Pete just get us into? But it turned out to be such a good experience.
Wasn't it the most beautiful thing flying over the Valley of the Kings?
Yes, it was, the hard landing.
Mm-hmm. But do you remember? You remember the guy had to lift me up out of the basket because I couldn't get out. But I was like,
he was video. So I recorded it.
It was so cute. I was like.
That was his name was Ahmed too. Everybody's name is either Ahmed or Muhammad.
Oh my goodness!
We want to say shout out to Tarek. So thank goodness he had a different name than everybody else. But Ahmed and Muhammad is usually someone's name there in Egypt. But yeah, he helped you out of the balloon. And it was a really good experience. It was only 8 of us. I had just gotten my Fitbit. So you would check in with me every now and then. How many miles, how many steps have we made? How many miles have we done? And we did a lot. We did a lot of walking. All before 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But it was good. So next on the list is South Africa. We want to go back to Dubai for Expo with Franda.
Yes, that's in October.
She hasn't figured out where I think she's trying to gauge the pandemic thing. So it may move to the new year for Dubai, but it's for everyone. It's not just women this time. So, but it's just Dubai. And it would be nice to be in Dubai in the new year.
That would be spectacular. Well, whatever, I'm just hoping that the pandemic is over. Well, Dubai is letting Americans back into their country, right? They probably spray us down before they let us out the airport. But I'm up for going over there. It would be nice to be over there for New Year's Eve.
Sharon Dunn says that she never realized her majestic power, the true Renaissance woman. I agree, Sharon.
That's my roommate from college. We traveled together also. We traveled to Venezuela. We got stories about Venezuela too. But hi, Sharon. I love Sharon. Yeah, my roommate from college.
And she is a Renaissance woman. You've made the pivot, from para teacher to teaching to the military. To doing a master's and deciding that you don't want to do a master's.
I didn't complete my master's.
But you decided you didn't want to do that. How many people will stick in there and knowing that's not what they want to do because they have to, you followed your heart, and then you went to the military. Then you took the test and you worked in the tunnels and then the airport, several different airports. So I've counted at least 5 pivots, and I know that we didn't talk about everything, but the whole thing is to live in your purpose and your passion and be the Renaissance woman that Sharon is talking about. I mean, it's really your authentic self. It's really not worrying about what the box is, because I'm working towards not having a box. Get outside of the box.
Right.
Or think outside of the box. I want to be in a place where we say what box. And that way people are free to do whatever they want. And so you're a good example of doing whatever you want. And now you have this nice retirement and you're out vacationing and touring and doing what you want on your own schedule. What do you recommend for people who are afraid to do that kind of thing?
Well, don't be afraid. There are so many people out there that are doing just that. Talk to people. Find out what is available. Find out what, and don't stay in your comfort zone. Because if you stay in your comfort zone, you'll never ever
Yeah.
experience anything exciting.
Mhm.
You know, when I went to Thailand, my friends, whenever I travel, I always take pictures with some kind of animal. And when I went to Thailand, I took a picture with a tiger. That was a big tiger. My friends are like, "You're crazy." And then in Egypt, I have a little I'm holding a crocodile or alligator, whichever one it is. And then
Crocodile.
in Dubai, there's the hawk that's, on my head or on my arm. So, a lot of people would never do that, but
Mhm.
you have to get out of your comfort zone and
So we
just
have
do.
Kim Milton, who is actually my guest at 7 o'clock today. She said, no balloons. She's not getting in any balloons. No balloons. Now she's going to Dubai with us in the
Okay.
Middle East. But if
We're
we
going to
end
talk
up,
her into a balloon.
Kim, we're going to talk you into the balloon. And Sharon says this is a great show and she loves you too. Yeah, but we're gonna do some things. I have to confess that I don't do everything that everybody does. We did the desert in Dubai
Right. We did the
and
dune bashing.
the dune bashing in the desert. I
Yes.
called Jesus the whole time. And guess what? I called him in Arabic. I was like, Isa, please help me. And
That was so much fun.
it was fun, but it was scary getting out there. But I did that. But I'm just not one for riding animals. I don't ride horses, and I would not do the camel either. I took pictures with the camel, but I just felt like I didn't want to miss the balloon. I was afraid, but I did it anyway. And I didn't want to miss the balloon. And I'm glad that you
And you're
suggested it
glad that
because
you did it, right?
yes,
The
it
first
was.
time I didn't do it, and I regretted not doing it. So this time I was not going to miss it. I was not going to miss it.
So Kim said the balloon is not happening for her.
Okay. All
She
right,
may
Kim.
change her mind. We may
She may.
change your mind. We just may change your mind. It's a once in a lifetime thing. So there's
Yeah.
certain things that you do. Like I said, I had the opportunity and in Dubai as well as Egypt to do the camel, and I sat it out both times.
Yeah, when you're in that balloon, Kim, you really do relinquish all of your control. You have no control over what's going to happen. And I can understand that because, yeah, I'm like that too. But that balloon ride was
And we got to be
awe-inspiring.
nosy. Not only did we fly over the Valley of the Kings, but we flew over towns,
Right.
little communities. We could see into people's homes.
But I think that was by accident because that first landing didn't go
Oh,
the
you
way it
think
was supposed to.
the homes were a mistake? Well, they were a
I
good
think
mistake.
so. I don't think that was part of the
So
tour.
Shani is suggesting that we have some parachutes.
Oh.
But it's hard to get
That
out of
would
the
that would
basket.
be too. Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. We wouldn't have enough room in the
We're
basket.
already smashed up in the baskets. You can't just jump out. You would have to like tip out. I don't know. How do you get out of a balloon? It's hard to get out of the balloon when you're just standing on the ground.
It's really hard, especially as I demonstrated in your video. A couple of people when we went to Atlantis and we had all of that food and drink and the buffet and whatnot. My cousin, you remember Connie?
Mm-hmm.
She said, Peaches, I got you. You look like you were having so much fun doing the conga line. I said, girl, I ain't did no conga line. What are you talking about? She showed me the video.
Yeah.
We had so much fun.
Kim will do Atlantis, I'm sure.
Yes.
No balloon, but she will do Atlantis.
Yes, Atlantis
and enjoy it.
Is a must. Yes.
Shani too. Shani will do it. So Sharon, we hope to see you over in Dubai with us as well.
Look,
hopefully
Sharon,
it happens at the end of the year.
I'm a junior compared to Sharon. Sharon has been everywhere in the world.
Oh, we can't wait to meet you then.
Everywhere in the
Well,
world.
she should meet us in Dubai. I know there's plenty more places to go, but Dubai is already planned. So South Africa is definitely on the list.
Yes.
Again, that was supposed to be this March 2021. Not going to happen. But probably 2022, we can do that. Um, I am planning a trip for little girls from 7 to 13. Their mothers have to come too, but we want to do Egypt. We've already talked to
Oh,
Franda
nice.
and Ahmed and all of us. Everybody's invited, but the trip is really focused on the 7 to 13-year-olds. I asked everybody probably around this time 2019 because I wanted to give them 3 years to save money.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem happened that we had this pandemic and people are looking to find their way and pay their bills. So we haven't started fundraising yet, but probably starting 2021, the end of 2021, we could still get 2 years of fundraising in so that we can
Okay,
take
well,
the
let me
little
keep
girls.
me posted.
And I want
I
to do a
will.
lot of Anne Swan so that they can
Yes.
see Anne Swan.
Yes.
And so I asked that we spend a couple days there. So I think we're just trying to figure out how to make it young lady friendly. And so, we did a lot of walking. And every time we showed up at a temple, I said, yet another temple. And I'm a big history buff, so it was good for me. But I don't think they want to do 1 or 2 temple tours a day. But there are certain things that I want them to see, like Giza, and then go into Luxor and seeing a temple or two, the Valley of the Kings. But I do want them to spend at least 2 days in Aswan.
Yeah. This last trip to Egypt was my third time. The first time I went with Dr. Ben. So you can only imagine.
I
That
saw.
was that was a whirlwind. Like we went to Elephantine Island. We stayed there a few days, and I stepped down in Aswan.
He
Yeah.
he
And,
goes to Sudan too, right?
well, he passed away.
Really?
Yeah, he passed away a couple of years ago now.
Hmm. I didn't
So
know that. But I
I'm
know
not sure.
they went to Sudan too. I'm not ready
Okay.
for Sudan yet. But yeah. But you just went to Egypt.
Yeah, with him it was like 2 weeks of intense, lectures, and we saw everything. It was really good. It was really good.
So I have to tell you guys also that Peaches loves clothes and food, and she comes to shop. So when we end up at a souk, you know who's going to have gifts bearing. She's going to have clothes and kabayas and calapias and
Those
whatever
days
they're
are over.
selling, gold. And so you stop shopping?
Well, yeah, because I'm always bringing stuff home for people, and people ain't bringing stuff home for me. So no, I stopped. And
Sharon
then
said
too,
Dr.
my luck.
Ben passed away in 2015.
Yeah, you're right.
Wow, I
In
didn't know that.
2015, that long ago?
So I must have been watching old videos.
Wow. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah,
So life is short. Life is absolutely short. Not
and
to
I'm gonna
live the
try
way
to.
that you want to.
Yes.
And as you said, you survived cancer and some other health issues, and you continue to travel and you continue to enjoy life. So you're an awesome example of how to pivot and live life the way that you want to. So what would you
Yeah,
like to
and
tell our audience? Because we've been talking for a while now. What would you like to tell our audience before I ask you
well,
our famous 2 questions?
I know one of the questions is a quote that you
Yeah. So what is your favorite quote?
Well, my favorite quote is, and we discussed this before. I don't know where it came from. I think I heard my grandmother say it, but it stuck with me. And it is, it's a poor mouse that only has one hole to crawl into. It's a poor mouse that only has
Only
one
has one
hole to
hole to
crawl
crawl
into.
into.
And to me, that meant not put all your eggs in one basket, learn how
Mm-hmm.
to do more than one thing so that you can have something to fall back on. And that was instilled. I was a little girl when I heard that. And once
Mm-hmm.
again, I always say my grandmother said, maybe it was her, maybe it was somebody else. And I tried to research it to, to see
Mm-hmm.
where it came from, but I can't find it. But that is what I modeled my life after, I think.
Well, I don't want to be a poor mouse. And I wanted to
Yeah, I'm
get
not going to be a poor mouse. And
and I want to take
it
it
doesn't,
literally too. I want more than one home to go to.
and that, it doesn't necessarily mean finances. It could mean experiences. It could mean, life changing. I've had a few life changing experiences. So yeah, it's a poor mouse that only has one hole to crawl into. Don't be a poor mouse. Don't.
And and on whose shoulders do you stand?
I have been fortunate enough to come into to run into a lot of strong women in my life. There are women in my family, my cousins, my cousin Bunny, my cousin Lynn. All of these women have done things that, that was nothing, but they were monumental to me. My Aunt Harriet, who worked as a teacher, I remember she raised money to take her fifth grade class to Disney World. And she gave me, I had just graduated from college in 74, and she gave me the trip I had to work as a chaperone. Kendra, chaperoning fifth graders some had never even been on the subway, let alone a plane. Yeah, but she did it. So she's one of the women that I'm very proud of. And then there's my sister, as quiet as it's kept. I call her my little sister only because she's shorter than me. But I think my sister is a phenomenal woman. She and I went to school the exact same years, 70 to 74. She went to Marymount, I went to Stony Brook. She, however, had 3 kids, a full-time job, and well, let's say Billy, I loved him dearly, but he was challenging. Let's just say that.
A
And
challenging
she
partner.
was, he was challenging. And she did all of that, while in school and graduated summa cum laude.
Wow.
So I look up to her. I admired her for what she did, what she was able to do. And, so I have a few women like that in my family. And like I mentioned earlier, she was in the military also. Although
Mm.
she went into the army, I chose the best branch to go into, the Air Force. But yeah, she inspired me to do that and, a lot of other things, and to, just be me.
So what is your advice to the rest of us? Because I've been watching the retirement channel since I was 35, and I want to be ready. I want to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it, not working at Walmart because I have to. Now if
Actually,
I
but
if I
because you
want to
want
hand out
to.
stickers in Walmart because I want to, then that's something
Right,
different. But I want to be
right.
able to travel and to live and to do. What is your advice to?
Well, fortunately for me, the group of people that I worked with in the Port Authority, we were very financial conscious. We would sit around and talk about our deferred compensation packages and the different funds that we um, had our monies going into, and what we should do if this happened. So they were very financial savvy, and I paid attention. I was always told that I was an aggressive saver, so I always had a little
Mhm.
something set aside. But when I retired from the Port Authority because of deferred compensation, I had a nice little something set aside. So I was able to do the condos and the car, whatever. But be smart with your money. One of the things that I always say, I don't do anything I can't afford to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying a $20,000 pocketbook for what?
If you
I'll
don't
have
have
a
$40,000 to
$10
put in it. Exactly.
right. I'll have a $10 pocketbook with $20,000 in it, but I'm not spending that kind of money. And
Right.
you know what? We could make a $10 pocketbook look just as good as $150,000. Come on. You don't
Mm-hmm.
need to be spending your money on that kind of stuff. Just think, but some people just get such a high off of spending and that's not me. I like to give, my family would say that I'm generous, but I'm not going to, to the
But you
point
save
where,
too.
right.
You enjoy
Yeah,
some and you save some.
exactly. And now I'm fortunate to be able to go wherever I want to go when I want to go, you know.
Yeah.
And see, that's what credit cards are for. You put it on your credit card and get a credit card that works for you. Get a credit card that gives you miles, or give a credit card that gives you
Mm-hmm.
cash back. I
Yeah.
had a cash back card and I wasn't paying attention to it. And when I checked on how much money I had in, I had like over
Mm-hmm.
$500.
Mm-hmm.
So the lady said, so do you want me to apply this to your credit bill? I said, no, put it in my checking account. I'm spending this. And then another thing you want to think about doing if you can is don't charge more than you can afford to pay when the bill comes. So technically you have a zero balance every month.
Yeah.
Don't do what you can't afford to do. Like,
Yeah.
yes, there have been a couple of times that I could not pay my entire bill, but that's because I charged the refrigerator, washing machine, and stove,
Mm-hmm.
But then,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so little things like that.
Just be mindful and have a
Yes.
plan. Yep. Well, I thank you for your time. Everybody seems to have enjoyed this conversation. I want to thank you for your questions and your comments. And Peaches, I am so glad that you joined me. You are the perfect example, as Sharon said, of the Renaissance woman who is not afraid to pivot, who dares to get out of her comfort zone and step outside of the box and think differently. And I thank you for your time. I thank everyone else for joining us. And we'll see you soon.
Yes, rice and peas at my house.
All right, rice and peas.
Okay, bye-bye, Franda.
Thank you for listening to Dream Aloud with Kendra. If you like the show, leave a review and tell a friend. I also invite you to join our Dream Aloud Facebook group, where we encourage and challenge our members to step outside of their comfort zone and live limitless lives. I guarantee you will experience true fulfillment when you live, work, and play your way.